Welcome to our deep dive into the sometimes confusing world of international etiquette.
Yeah.
You sent in that article from Riviera Travel,
Yeah.
and it's called 12 International Etiquette Tips Every Traveler Should Know.
hmm
So we're going to use that as a jumping off point
Yeah.
to talk about some of the more interesting
Right.
customs and things that we should keep in mind when we travel.
Sure. Yeah.
So first up
Okay.
is greetings in Peru.
Yeah.
It seems like they're really big on handshakes.
Yeah, they are in Peru, and actually I think in a lot of South American countries.
Oh, really?
Greetings are quite formal. So you'll be shaking hands not only when you meet somebody, but also when you say goodbye to them.
Oh, so you're shaking hands on the way in and the way out.
Yeah, you are. It's kind of a nice way to bookend any interaction that you have with somebody and to really acknowledge them
Yeah.
as a person, as opposed to just a transaction. You'll notice it in cafes and shops and hotels. It's very widespread.
Hmm. I've always found that when I travel, those little interactions
Yeah.
are the things that really make your trip memorable.
Right.
It's the stuff that you don't plan for. So
Yeah.
our next stop is Nepal.
Okay.
I've always wanted to go to Nepal, very interested in all the spiritual things that happen there.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that we should keep in mind when we're...
Yeah. So when you're visiting sacred sites like Hindu and Buddhist temples, I think you'll notice right away that respect and humility are really emphasized.
Yeah.
I think you'll sense that pretty quickly. And I think it really reflects the deep reverence that people have for these spaces as places of worship and meditation.
So it's not just a place where you're just popping in for a quick selfie
Yeah, that's
and renting out, right?
yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the things that we should be aware of?
Well, first of all, removing your shoes before you enter a temple
Okay.
is customary. And that's symbolic, I think, of shedding the outside world and entering with a kind of a clean and humble mindset.
It's almost like leaving your worries at the door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Now, what about photos? Is it okay to take pictures in these temples?
Yeah, photography restrictions are pretty common in a lot of sacred spaces, because photography is often viewed as being a distraction from the spiritual purpose of the place. And sometimes it's actually believed that photographs can capture or disturb the energy of the place.
Interesting.
So it's always a good idea to ask permission
Okay.
before you take photos.
Yeah, be present in the moment.
Yeah.
Put the phone down.
Uh-huh.
Soak it in. Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of soaking it in, next stop is Egypt,
Okay.
which is a place I've always wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that you have to be very careful about PDAs.
Yes, that's right. So in Egypt, it's important to remember that public displays of affection are generally frowned upon.
Okay.
And as a predominantly Islamic country, modesty, especially in public places, is really emphasized. And this applies to any overly affectionate displays, not just couples. So
even if I'm overwhelmed by the romance of the pyramids,
right.
I should keep my hands to myself.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And especially during the holy month of Ramadan.
Okay.
Muslims observe a period of fasting and spiritual reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So being mindful of these sensitivities is extra important during that month.
I mean, it's so easy to forget when you travel that you're not in Kansas anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think, being culturally sensitive is something that we should always keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up is India.
Okay.
And I hear that
Yeah.
they have some unique dining customs.
They do. You might notice that that people in India, they eat primarily with their right hand.
Yeah, I've heard about that,
Yeah.
but I've never really understood why. Do you know?
Yeah, it goes back to ancient hygiene practices.
Oh,
The left hand is traditionally associated with tasks like, washing oneself after using the toilet.
Sure.
And so because of that, using the left hand to eat is considered unclean.
So it's not just a random rule.
Right.
It's tied to their cultural beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. It has deep roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this next one, I think you're going to get a kick out of.
Okay.
That universal symbol for good job, thumbs up.
Yeah.
In Turkey,
Yeah.
you got to be a little careful.
Yeah, you do. In
Tell
Turkey,
us that.
and actually a few other parts of the Middle East, in Greece,
Really?
the thumbs up gesture can be interpreted a bit differently.
Oh, how so?
It's actually considered offensive. Kind of the
yeah.
equivalent of saying up yours or something like that.
That could lead to some real awkward moments
Yes, it could.
if you're not aware of that, right?
Yeah.
So be careful about throwing those thumbs up around.
Yeah.
Unless you know the local custom.
Yeah, that's good advice. And it's not just the thumbs up.
Okay.
Hand gestures in general can
Yeah.
have surprisingly different meanings.
Mm-hmm.
The okay sign
Right.
can also cause offense in some cultures.
Mm.
Um, and even head nods can be misinterpreted.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes yes and no are reversed. So you have to be really
Wow.
careful.
That is fascinating.
Yeah,
I mean, we really do rely on those nonverbal cues
we do.
a lot more than I think we realize.
Yeah.
And it really does highlight the fact that it's important to be aware
Mm-hmm.
of those differences.
Yeah.
Next, let's head to Italy.
Okay.
Land of beautiful art and architecture
Yeah.
and incredible food.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear there's an etiquette tip that we should be aware of.
There is. Yeah. You'll want to be mindful of where you choose to enjoy your snacks.
Okay.
So it's considered disrespectful
Mhm.
to eat or drink near churches,
Okay.
historic monuments, public buildings.
Okay.
And in some Italian towns and cities,
Okay.
it's actually against the law.
Really?
So you could even be fined.
So no leisurely picnics on the Spanish Steps, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up
Right.
is a place that might challenge
Okay.
your preconceived notions about dining etiquette.
Okay.
We're heading to China,
Right.
where mealtime comes with a very unique soundscape.
That's right. One notable difference that you'll experience in China
Okay.
is the acceptance, even encouragement,
Okay.
of burping during meals.
Really? Burping?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a cultural difference I was not expecting.
Yeah, it's surprising for a lot of people.
Can you explain the cultural logic behind that?
Yeah, it really comes down to cultural perspective.
Okay.
So burping after a meal
Yeah.
is seen as a compliment to the chef, a sign of satisfaction.
So you're basically saying that was amazing
Yeah.
by burping.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this next tip I think a lot of people are going to want to pay attention to.
Okay.
So you could save them a few
Mm-hmm.
yens, maybe even some embarrassment.
Okay.
Let's talk about tipping.
All right.
Or I guess in this case, not tipping.
Right.
In Japan.
Yeah, so tipping is not customary in Japan.
Really?
And in some cases, it can even be considered insulting.
Yeah.
Providing excellent service
Okay.
is seen as a matter of professional pride
Yeah.
and duty in Japanese culture, so it's just expected.
So no need to fumble around for change
Right.
after a meal.
No.
Or calculate percentages or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that really speaks to a very different
Yeah.
cultural value.
Yeah, I think it does. Taking pride in your work,
Yeah.
striving for excellence,
Yeah. It's ingrained.
and last but not least,
Okay.
let's head to France.
The land of romance, cuisine, and of course, that beautiful language.
Right.
Now, I know a lot of Americans, myself included,
Yeah.
are very intimidated to try to speak French
Uh-huh.
because we're afraid we're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
But is it better to try than to not try at all?
Yes, it is. Even if your French is a little rusty,
Okay.
making an effort to speak even a few basic phrases
Okay.
really goes a long way in France.
Okay.
So a simple bonjour or merci
Mhm.
can make a world of difference.
It shows that you're trying to connect
Yeah,
with the culture.
it does.
You're not
yeah.
just
It does.
a tourist passing through.
Yeah,
You're someone who values
right.
the language and the customs
Exactly.
of the country that you're visiting.
Yeah, I think the French really appreciate that effort.
So picture this. You walk into a Parisian cafe
Yeah.
and you try to order a croissant
Mm-hmm.
and a café au lait
Yeah.
with your best French accent.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not perfect, but you try. And what happens?
I think they'll be charmed by it,
Yeah.
most likely.
And you probably get what you ordered.
Yeah. And they'll probably help you with your French,
Yeah.
and you'll have a nice interaction.
Good. So it really is all about making that effort.
Yeah, it is. And,
Well, connect.
I think that's a good place to stop for now.
Okay.
Then we'll pick it up next time.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
It's interesting, isn't it, when we've been talking about all these cultural differences.
Yeah.
It really makes you realize how much we rely on all these unwritten rules
Yeah.
of etiquette to navigate social situations.
Yeah, we don't even think about it.
Right.
It's just something that we do.
It's ingrained.
And one of the great things about travel is
Yeah.
it forces you
Yeah.
to think about those things and to become aware of them.
Yeah.
It's like learning a new language,
Uh-huh.
but instead of words,
Yeah.
it's gestures and
Right.
customs.
Exactly.
Speaking of language,
Yeah.
we talked about making an effort to speak French in France.
Uh-huh.
I think that applies anywhere you go.
I think so too.
Yeah. Just learning a few basic phrases like hello and thank you and please, and
yeah, it can make a huge difference.
it really can, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's just a way of acknowledging the local culture and saying, hey, I'm not just a tourist passing through. I'm someone who respects your culture, and I'm trying to learn a little bit about it.
Yeah, and I think it just opens doors to unexpected connections and experiences.
It does.
Yeah.
As we're talking about all these customs, I'm thinking about, what we consider polite.
Yeah.
And what we consider rude.
Right.
Is really based on our own cultural upbringing.
Absolutely.
So for example, we talked about how burping is considered a compliment in China.
Right.
Are there other cultures where bodily functions that we consider unmentionable are viewed completely differently?
Yeah, there are.
Oh, give me an example.
So for instance, in some nomadic cultures, like the Maasai in East Africa, spitting is a very common form of greeting.
Wow.
And a sign of respect.
Spitting?
Yeah.
Like projecting saliva?
Yes.
I cannot even imagine.
Yeah, but it's not meant to be offensive.
Oh, okay.
In these cultures, spitting is seen as a way of sharing one's life force.
Wow.
Or essence.
That is a completely different perspective.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder what else we might be misinterpreting.
Right, exactly.
If we're not aware of the cultural context.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder to approach cultural differences with curiosity and an open mind.
Yeah.
Rather than judgment.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Let's talk about gift giving. Because I know that can be tricky.
Yeah, okay.
When you're in a different culture. So what are some of the key things to keep in mind?
Well, in a lot of cultures,
Okay.
gift giving is an important part of social etiquette.
Okay.
But the rules and expectations can really vary widely. So, for example, in Japan, it's customary to present gifts with both hands as a sign of respect. And the wrapping and presentation of the gift are just as important as the gift itself.
So no sloppily wrapped presents.
No, I don't think that would go over very well.
Or like tossing gifts across the table.
No, they really value thoughtfulness, attention to detail.
Yeah. And just as there are customs around presenting gifts, I imagine there are also cultural no-nos.
There are.
In terms of what you choose to give. Yeah. What are some examples of that?
Well, for instance, in some cultures, giving sharp objects, like knives or scissors, is considered bad luck. And then in some Asian cultures, giving white flowers is associated with funerals.
Oh.
So those would be things to avoid.
So if you're going to be traveling to a place where you might be giving gifts, do a little research first.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that could be tricky, dress codes.
Yeah.
In a lot of countries, particularly those that have strong religious traditions. Modest dress is really important.
It is.
And modest dress can mean different things in different cultures.
Yeah, that's right.
What are some of the things that we should be thinking about?
Well, in some places, it might mean covering your shoulders and knees.
Okay.
And other places, it might involve wearing loose-fitting clothing. Okay.
Or covering your head.
Okay, so if I'm packing for a trip.
Yeah.
And I'm going to a place where I think modest dress is important. What's the best approach?
I would say err on the side of caution.
Okay.
And do a little research beforehand.
Okay.
Look up local customs, dress codes, and if in doubt, pack a few versatile items that can be easily layered or adapted to different situations.
That's great advice, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about business etiquette.
Right.
Because I know that the business world has its own set of unwritten rules.
Absolutely.
And they vary from culture to culture.
They do, yeah.
So if you're traveling for business, what are some of the key things to keep in mind?
Well, it's really crucial to be aware of the local customs around greetings, meetings, negotiations.
Good.
For example, in Japan, business etiquette is very formal.
Okay.
Exchanging business cards is a very important ritual.
And it's done with both hands and a slight bow.
So, no, tossing the business card across the table or?
No, that would not be a good idea.
Shoving it in your back pocket?
No, definitely not.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What about punctuality?
Yeah, so that's another area
Oh.
where cultural expectations can differ.
Okay.
So, in some cultures like Germany,
Yeah.
being on time is absolutely paramount.
Right.
Arriving even a few minutes late can be seen as disrespectful.
Yeah, but in other cultures,
Right.
time is a little bit more fluid.
That's right, yeah.
Like in Latin America.
Yeah, or some Mediterranean countries
Right.
have a much more relaxed approach to time.
So you to be aware of that.
You do, yeah. Yeah.
What's expected.
And adjust your expectations and
Yeah.
pack a little extra patience.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
travel is that more
Yeah.
than just avoiding faux pas, right?
Yeah. It is, yeah.
It's about immersing yourself in new cultures and connecting with people.
Absolutely.
And just expanding your horizons.
It is.
What's one of the best ways to really understand a culture?
I think one of the best ways is just to observe and learn from the locals.
Like, watch how they interact with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
How they greet each other.
Yeah.
How they dress.
Yeah.
How they eat.
Exactly, yeah.
Pay attention to their body language, their facial expressions, their tone of voice, how they show respect, how they express their emotions, how they navigate social situations.
Right.
Yeah, it's like watching a live-action documentary.
Yeah, it is.
But you're a part of it.
That's right.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
No, I think most people are happy to share their culture and customs with curious travelers.
Yeah.
Just approach with a genuine desire to learn.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised at what you learn.
Yeah, and maybe some of your own assumptions will be challenged.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the best things about travel.
I agree.
It's not just about seeing new places.
It's about seeing the world through different eyes.
Yeah.
And expanding your understanding of what's possible.
Well said. I think sometimes the most unexpected cultural encounters can lead to the most memorable travel experiences.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's funny. We've been talking about all this etiquette and how to do things right.
Right.
But sometimes it's the mistakes that we make that end up being the most memorable travel moments.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, those moments when you realize you've just totally broken a cultural norm.
Yes.
And you suddenly feel like such an outsider.
Yeah.
It can be embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a really incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
For learning and growth.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I remember this one time well, maybe I shouldn't share it on the air.
Okay.
But it involved hand gestures in a certain European country.
Uh-huh.
And let's just say I learned a very valuable lesson about nonverbal communication.
It's amazing, isn't it? How a simple gesture can have such a different meaning.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are in the world.
So much of how we communicate is nonverbal.
It is, yeah. Think about it.
Yeah.
Facial expressions, body language.
Tone of voice.
Physical
proximity.
Physical proximity, yeah.
How close you stand to someone.
Yeah.
All of those things communicate meaning.
And it's all filtered through this cultural lens.
It is.
It's like we're all speaking these different dialects of nonverbal communication.
And
But sometimes those dialects clash.
They clash, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully armed with some of this etiquette advice, our listeners can avoid some of those clashes.
Minimize the awkwardness and maximize the enjoyment.
Yeah, maximize the enjoyment.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about a lot of different etiquette tips.
Yeah.
But one thing we haven't really touched on that much is dining etiquette.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other.
A whole world unto itself.
It is, yeah.
So what are some of the things that we should be aware of?
Well, table manners are, they're so deeply ingrained in a culture, and they can vary so much from country to country.
Like, for example, I've heard that in some cultures, slurping your noodles is a sign of enjoyment.
That's right, yeah.
Whereas in other cultures, it's considered really rude.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then there's the rules about using utensils and
whether you share food.
Sharing food.
Yeah, the proper way to hold your chopsticks.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, even how to compliment the chef.
Yeah, so many things.
That's a lot to remember.
It can be really overwhelming.
You can.
But it's also a really great way to experience the culture.
Yeah, I think so too.
Through its food, right.
Yeah, embrace the differences. Observe how the locals do it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, see it as an adventure.
Yeah.
Not a test.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, For those of us who like to take photos when we travel, what are some etiquette tips to keep in mind?
Well, I think it's always a good idea to ask permission before taking photos of people, especially in sacred spaces or cultural ceremonies. Not everyone is comfortable being photographed, and it's important to respect those boundaries.
Absolutely. And of course, be mindful of the environment.
Yes. Definitely.
Don't trample on delicate ecosystems or disrupt wildlife.
Remember, travel photography is about capturing the essence of a place. Its people, its culture.
Not just snapping selfies.
Right, exactly.
In front of landmarks.
Take the time to observe. Connect with your surroundings. Let those authentic moments unfold naturally.
I think those are the photos that will really transport you back to that experience. Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into international etiquette, let's remember that travel is more than just checking destinations off a list.
It is,
It's about expanding our perspectives, embracing the unknown, and connecting with the world in a meaningful way.
And I think those connections often happen in the most unexpected places and in the most surprising ways.
Absolutely. So be open to new experiences. Be willing to step outside your comfort zone. But most importantly, be respectful of the cultures.
Be respectful that you encounter.
Travel is a gift.
It is.
It's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to discover the beauty of human diversity.
Well said.
So to all our listeners out there, safe travels.
Safe travels, everyone.